Hello, Diana. It's such an honor to have you as a guest on the Paleo Gardening Expert Interview segment. Thanks for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me.
Diane Rodgers lives on a working organic farm west of Boston. She has authored 2 books, The Homegrown Paleo and Paleo Lunches and Breakfasts on the Go. She is the creator of Sustainable Dish, owns Radiance Nutritional Therapy. Diana, how would you explain all that you do to anyone unfamiliar with your work?
Sure. Well, basically, I'm a nutritionist who lives on a working organic farm. So primarily, I'm a nutritionist. I'm currently an NTP, nutritional therapy practitioner, that I graduated from the Nutritional Therapy Association. And this spring I will be an RD as well, so registered dietitian. I counsel people eating a nutrient-dense, healthy diet, and have written 2 books, run 2 podcasts, and do a lot of public speaking all about sustainability and nutrition.
Nice. That's a lot of things to do.
Yeah.
Everyone has a unique story of how they regain their health in the paleo world. Could you tell me about your journey to health?
You know, a lot of people get into paleo just to lose some weight, but I actually got into it because I was having problems with my blood sugar. It was kind of like going up and down like a roller coaster. About 10 years before I went paleo, I found out I had celiac disease, which had gone undiagnosed my whole life. So I was about 26 when I found out I had celiac disease, which explained a lot of why I was so sick as a kid. And so I went gluten-free initially, but it didn't really solve all my issues. So most of my stomach problems went away, but I was still having a lot of metabolic issues. And so I decided to learn more about nutrition, and eventually I left my job in marketing. I had worked for several different companies, but the most recent company was Whole Foods Market, where I was actually approving all the gluten-free products that were coming into the store as part of my job as a marketing person. And you know, I was pretty addicted to gluten-free processed food. So gluten-free brownies, gluten-free pizza, gluten-free pasta, all that stuff, you know, I just thought was the best. And I was, you know, on the cutting edge of all the newest products that were coming out. Anyhow, so when I had my second child, it just got too crazy to keep that job plus do childcare. So I joined my husband working on the farm and you know, spent more time at home with the kids, and then decided to go back to school to learn more about nutrition. And that's when I read a book called The Paleo Solution by Rob Wolf, and it really changed my life. So you know, all my food cravings, needing to eat every hour and a half to 2 hours, that all went away. And, you know, so even though I was gluten-free, I was still eating a very highly processed diet, and switching over to paleo really saved my life, and it has changed my total career. So initially I went back to school mostly just because I wanted to learn more about my own health and saving myself. But once I graduated from NTA, I opened a practice and decided to make, you know, helping people transition to a paleo-type diet my full-time job. So although I'm not, I don't only support paleo, I support real food in general. I think most people should start out with a paleo-type diet, and then see how they do reintroduce foods. Some people, like my husband, for example, can handle a little bit of gluten, and that's you know, fine in the context of a real foods diet. My kids are not 100% gluten-free. Sometimes they get school lunch. They eat pizza sometimes at their friends' houses. I'm always gluten-free, and I'm generally a pretty low-carb person, just because I have problems tolerating a lot of carbs. But my husband, for example, is outside farming constantly and needs a lot of carbs and does really well on a lot of carbs. So I'm pretty moderate as far as, I think that the context of the individual is really, really important to consider, and there is no one-size-fits-all diet for everybody. So I tend to be down at one end of the spectrum, and my husband's at the other end, and I think most people fall somewhere in between those two extremes. And so that's how I approach my nutrition counseling is, where are we at, what are your issues, and how do we move forward from there?
Yeah, that sounds really good. I was the same way. Went gluten-free, then went dairy-free, still blood sugar up, down, eating every hour and a half. Went paleo about 3 weeks into it. That blood sugar's been steady ever since. And it's been amazing. I just love it.
It really changes your life.
Yeah, it does. It does. And that's what gave me the passion to help people to grow good food, because it's like, here it is. Here's what you're looking for. Let me help you get there. Yeah.
Right.
So cool. So how has your journey to health affected the way that you help others?
It has 100% affected it. I feel like I can relate really well to my nutrition clients that I see, because I've had a lot of sort of like IBS issues through dealing with my celiac disease. Most people do come to me either wanting more energy, weight loss, or because they have some intestinal issues that are just completely unresolved. And so, through my education, just learning about myself, I've been able to have a huge impact on lots of other people's lives.
That's great. I love it when you can individualize every person's diet to help them, hone in on who they are.
Right.
In our email setting up this interview, you mentioned training to become a nutritionist. So how is that going?
So I am a nutritionist currently. Lots of people can call themselves a nutritionist. There's no legal definition of a nutritionist, and so anyone can just say that they are one. What I'm training for now is to become a dietitian. So registered dietitians is the medical credential that allows you to do medical nutrition therapy. So, for example, anyone can help someone with weight loss or healthy living. So anyone could just give advice on those two topics. But in order to do medical nutrition therapy, so if someone came to me with a disease, like cancer, for example, you need to be a registered dietitian in order to dispense medical nutrition therapy, so to give a prescriptive diet. And so, because of that, and because in Massachusetts, insurance reimbursement is so high, so I'll be able to take insurance and see a whole new profile of person. So right now I've only been able to see people who can pay cash out of pocket, which limits the population that I can see. So moving forward with this RD, I'll be able to take insurance. I'll be able to work more closely with doctors, get referrals from doctors, and also do more medical nutrition therapy. So that's why I'm doing it. As far as how it's going, it's been really difficult. I'm glad that I had the background in ancestral nutrition before I jumped into this program, because it is pretty outdated information, a lot of it. So that's been challenging for me. The low-fat, high-carbohydrate dogma is still what's being taught in this dietetics programs, unfortunately. So that's been, I'm just trying to get through it, basically. And it's been a lot of money. It's been a lot of my time. It's held me back from doing a lot of other things that I'd like to be doing, but I'll be done soon. So that's that.
Good. And then you can help change that regime a little bit.
Maybe. Or just do my own thing and not worry about the regime.
There you go. Yeah, help the people that want help. Yep. So in paleo gardening, we are passionate about teaching anyone how to boost the nutritional density of their produce. Your excitement about spreading the word about nutrient-dense, sustainable nutrition is rather contagious. So what are your recommendations on boosting nutritional density on the paleo diet?
So are you talking about nutrient-dense vegetables specifically, or nutrient density in general?
Either one. Your choice.
Okay. So the most nutrient-dense foods, if you're looking at actual nutrient density, would be meats and fats. Things like lettuce aren't incredibly nutrient-dense to begin with. They don't have a ton of calories. And it actually, what a lot of people don't realize is that it takes a lot of vitamins and energy in order to digest vegetables and fruits. And a lot of the vitamins that are stated aren't always as bioavailable as people think they are. So one way to make food more bioavailable, the nutrition in vegetables more bioavailable, is to cook the food. So I know that there are a lot of, people that swear by raw-only foods, but actually, breaking down that cell wall a little bit on plants can actually make it easier to digest some of the vitamins that are in it. And the same goes with meat as well. So, I just got back from the Paleo Primal Price Conference. So this is a new organization that just started, and they had a conference November 21st, and I presented at it on the WHO meat causes cancer topic. And I went through all the arguments why meat is not only healthy for human consumption, but also for the environment. And one of the questions at the end was, well, what about raw meat? And so while I think a little raw meat from very, very safe sources is okay, I actually believe in cooked meat for the most absorbable forms of nutrition from that meat. So there's, the connective tissue in meat can be really difficult to digest, and by slow cooking methods like soups and stews, it's much easier to digest and absorb all those good connective tissues, tendons, things like that. And also, the minerals too. You do get some vitamin loss in cooking, but meat has so many vitamins that the loss, compared to the risks, are actually, I think, it's not much of a trade-off there. And then there's some things that are enhanced by cooking, like selenium selenium absorption is enhanced by cooking. So those are two things. Well, really one thing, just cooking your food. And it's not to say that a salad, if you enjoy a salad, that's fine. To eat it once in a while, or some beef tartare, it's fine. But there's a lot of risks with getting raw and undercooked meat as well. And I think people tend to overly trust farmers and think that their meat is safe when, there's all kinds of things being done to meat that are behind the scenes that they're not aware of. And practices that I've seen as, through my farming experience in slaughterhouses and butcheries. And then also just knowing, for example, to tenderize meat, a new practice is to take basically like a huge pin cushion and stick the steak with these pins, which transfers any bacteria on the surface of the muscle tissue inside the meat. And so, and they're taking those same pins, not sterilizing them, and doing, the entire day's worth of steaks going through that plant with these pins. So, if even one little, trace of E. coli is on the outside of a steak, it can now be inside all the steaks that were processed that day. So I never order rare steak at a restaurant unless I know exactly what farm the meat is coming from.
I did not know they were doing that. That's gross.
Yeah. And then other people ask me, I heard there's a dairy up the street. I'm just going to go get some raw milk. And although, most paleo people aren't raw milkers, a lot of Weston A. Pricers are. And, there's a lot of risks with raw milk as well. I do think it can be a safe food to consume, but it needs to be from a very small farm where they're doing, grass-fed only, where the cows are super healthy, and it's not always easy to, just for the layperson who maybe doesn't have a lot of experience, walking around farms and inspecting farms to even know, what they're looking at. So that's one of the reasons I wrote the Homegrown Paleo Cookbook. So it's not only a cookbook, but it's actually the first half of the book is a manual on how to produce your own food from vegetables and, chickens, cows, goats, pigs, all of it. And it was really written not so much as only a manual, but for people who just aspire to either maybe one day want to farm or just want to know more about sustainable food production, so that when they go to another farm and they're looking for, they're looking at the chickens, for example, and they see that the farmer doesn't have mobile chicken coops, and the chickens are just sort of pecking at the same piece of dirt all the time, they'll kind of have a sense of, maybe this isn't really what I was thinking about when I wanted to have, outdoor hen, eggs from outdoor hens, for example. So that was kind of a long answer to your question, but, and nutrient density as well, like people think, hydroponically grown lettuce will save us, and, isn't it great that we can grow so much lettuce indoors under fluorescent lights and all these things, and really nothing can substitute for nature. So understanding soil science, my husband actually is a soil scientist, that's his training, and so understanding how to, create good soil, how to infuse the soil back with what you take from it, and, using cover crops and things like that in the case of vegetables, and also incorporating animal manure so that the soil has, all the nutrients to give the plant. That as well.
That's what we concentrate on, too, is raising that nutrient density by working with the soil. It's so important. Yes. So what are your thoughts on the recent announcement that processed beef is a cause of cancer?
So this recent WHO report claiming that, bacon, sausage, and other cured and processed meats are group 1 carcinogens, putting them in the same category as tobacco, asbestos, alcohol, and arsenic, it's really pretty overblown. And what they actually found was that there might be 3 extra cases of bowel cancer per 100,000 adults. So that means you have about a 1 in 33,000 chance of developing bowel cancer from eating cured and processed meats. So what people aren't understanding is that, the risk of smoking cigarettes is much, much, much higher than that. And I actually wrote an article for Paleo magazine as well, outlining this, and have been talking about it a lot publicly. So in the case of fresh meat, they found they're classifying it in group 2, so probably carcinogenic, in the same context as in the same group as Roundup. And so, glyphosate, which is in Roundup. And what they're really looking at are epidemiological studies, tracking people who are, a typical omnivore versus people who are not eating meat. And so there's a couple things going on here. One is that these types of studies are not randomized control studies in a lab. So they did not take, someone on a healthy paleo-type diet and then someone who's on a healthy diet without meat and track them for 30 years, right? Because you can't do that. It's very expensive. It's mean, right, to keep people in a lab that long. But that's really the only way that you would be accurately able to tie cancer directly to the intake of fresh red meat, okay? So what they can look at is association. So, by saying that eating red meat is associated with higher cancer is there's just too many different factors going on. So one is the dangers of diet recall. So people, this has been proven time and time again, people lie on these diet recalls. So when you're relying on a study that where you're looking at what people are, recording as their intake, they're much more likely to maybe remember that they had a steak or a burger, maybe, red meat 3 times last week, but they're much more likely to forget the extra large fries, the, 27-ounce big gulp, and the deep fried apple pie that they had with those things. They're also much more likely to forget that they're a smoker, forget how much alcohol they consumed or that they even consumed any, and they're much more likely to enhance how much exercise that actually happened. So there's that. First of all, you're relying on people that lie because there's just this wanting to make yourself look better to researchers. That's just a natural human trait. And then the other thing is this healthy user bias. So vegetarians in general tend to lead healthier lives than a typical person who's on a standard American diet. So, there's lots of other factors going on there. There's, all the yoga classes, all the mindfulness, all the, all those things that go along with your classic vegetarian lifestyle that's just much less present in someone who's on a standard American diet. But interestingly, there was one study that compared the mortality of people who shopped at health food stores. So now you're getting vegetarians and omnivores who are generally following a similar lifestyle, right? They're shopping at health food stores. And then they compared those people to the general population, and they found that vegetarians and omnivores in the health food store group live longer than the general population, and there was no difference between the omnivores and the vegetarians.
I would think the type of beef that you ate would make a huge difference, like whether you ate feedlot beef or grass-fed beef. And they're probably not looking at those. It makes somewhat
of a difference. I actually have to say, though, that, if you're looking at beef in general versus, pork or chicken, I would still argue that, and I eat grass-fed beef. I have a cow in my freezer right now that, we're going through. But I don't think that it needs to be grass-fed or nothing. I still think that beef from a feedlot is still a better choice than no beef. And it's still a better choice than chicken or pork from a feedlot because of two things. One is what they're eating, and two is sort of the animal treatment, humane animal welfare kind of issue. So if you think about these factory farms, cows do not even CAFO cows do not live their entire life indoors under fluorescent lights in very crowded, cramped conditions, eating only grain. Okay, so that's what happens with chickens and with pigs, and to some extent to dairy cows a little bit too. But beef cattle, even CAFO beef cattle, spend their life outdoors. So they're actually free range grazing for most of their life, and then in the case of CAFO beef, they do go to a feedlot towards the end, but it's not always totally a negative experience. At least they're outside. They can move around. They're not caged up as in chicken and pork. So, and I still think beef is more nutrient dense, even if it's CAFO raised beef, from a human nutrition standpoint than poultry, specifically poultry, but also pork. So I don't want people thinking that, it has to be grass-fed or nothing. I still think that, eat beef. And if you can afford, that next level, the grass-fed, it's even better.
So recently you spoke at the Ancestral Health Symposium in New Zealand. So how was that trip?
Oh, that was really great. I ended up going about a week early before the trip and got to see a little bit of the country. I did a road trip with Emily Deans, who is she has a blog called Evolutionary Psychiatry, and she's a psychiatrist that looks at the effects of our microbiota and mental health. And so she and I got to have a fun road trip kind of through the country before the conference. And then I have to say that the actual conference was one of the best conferences I've ever attended, not only because the speakers were fantastic. They were from all over the world, mostly Australia, New Zealand, and just really, really fascinating topics. And I wrote a blog post about it that folks can see on my blog, which is sustainabledish.com. So I wrote about, some of my favorite talks, and they were mostly about how to connect with people and how to affect change with people. So those were my favorite talks. So just trying to figure out what motivates people and sort of how to talk to people so that they're really understanding what you're trying to get them to understand, right? Because not all people are going to hear the same message the same way, and some people are ready for a major change, and other people need it presented to them in a different format. So that was really interesting. But I also appreciated, I go to a lot of conferences, and it can be really hard to sit all day long, right, at a conference, and listen to, people talk and talk and talk, and, and then you might get up for 5 minutes, and then you have to sit back down again. So this conference, all the speakers, almost all of them went for only half an hour. And then there were a lot of breaks. So there was a half an hour break in the morning, a half an hour break in the afternoon, and then a 2-hour break for lunch every day. And then the conference would end at 5 every day. So it was a 3-day conference, but it was broken out in that format. And it was really, I was much less fatigued by the speakers because of that. I think, if a speaker can't get their point across in half an hour, then you've lost some people by that. So I think limiting people in general. There was a couple speakers that went longer, and I was happy that they did. But in general, give me your people are going to walk away with 3 or 4 main points from your talk. So if you can't get that across in half an hour, then I think that you need to improve your speaking skills. So it was really, really great. I hope I get to go back. I've been invited back for the 2017 conference that they're just now kind of thinking about, and I hope I can figure out how to get back over there. I'd love to stay. I love New Zealand. It was really, really great.
So the paleo community seems to be embracing the concept of becoming more sustainable. So why do you think this is rising in popularity?
So I hope it is. I don't know for sure if that's really the case, or if I'm just, if I'm just hopeful that that's the case. But I think, at a certain point you get, you fix yourself, right? You fix your own personal health, and then what's next? So, you can either just kind of keep coasting, or you can get more interested in food production and food politics. So that's, kind of the evolution that I took, and I think that that's really, for the people that are thinkers and, much more conscious about what's going on around them. That's the sort of the natural evolution of how this diet plays out for people.
Yeah, I've noticed that happening too. Once people start to get a hold of it and start feeling better, then they want to share it and then dive deeper, which is great.
Yeah.
Your work has helped so many people, and there are many of us who would like to see you continue. So how can anyone listening stay involved with your work?
So they can visit my blog, which is www.sustainabledish.com. There I have links to all my other stuff. So like I mentioned, I have 2 cookbooks. One's a straight-up cookbook, and the other one is a cookbook plus a homesteading guide. Along the homesteading front, I run a podcast called The Modern Farm Girls with Liz Wolfe, who's also a real foods nutritionist. I got videos posted up there of my life on the farm, so people can, some of them are helpful and other ones are just funny. So it's everything from, how to sucker and take care of tomato plants, but then there's other videos, just, my daughter teaching kids how to go frogging. So lots of big, diverse assortment of videos up there. I've got another podcast that, I'm not sure when this is going to air, but we're launching it next week, and it's called Real Food Radio. So that's for more for people who are just sort of interested in the food aspect of, healthy living. And there's more to come. I blog often. I do a lot of speaking, and I'll be taking clients on a more regular basis. Right now it's sort of part-time, but starting in the spring, once I complete my my dietetic internship, I will be, open more full-time to really take more nutrition clients.
Nice. You're really busy. That's cool. Okay. Well, I want to thank you for taking the time to join me on the show today.
Thanks so much for having me.
Yeah. For those of you listening, learn more about Diana Rodgers by clicking the links in the description or by visiting sustainabledish.com. It's a pleasure to have you as a guest in the Paleo Gardening Expert Interview. I want you to have a wonderful day.
All right. You too. Thanks a lot.